Right there. Look at that right there. Look at that head shake, man. Oh, man. That's what we came up here for.
Okay, live in 3, 2, 1.
Kolo, you're back in the studio now. We've got to hang out quite a bit over the last few days here.
We did. There was some on-water time, some mind-melding time of talking about topics. But what a dream it is to be here in Linder Media Studios. As a kid, I read all the magazines and everything else
Sure,
like that.
me too.
It's not lost on me to be able to come in here and film where the greats have once walked. Thank you.
Well, yeah. Well, we really appreciate you coming up. And Kolo and I just got done fishing a charity event here in Brainerd, Minnesota on Gull Lake, and that was fun to see out there. And you guys did awesome, man.
It's a big one, It's a Minnesota Teen Challenge, but it's like a who's who of fishing in the upper Midwest, in the multi-species world. And over the last 17 years, they've had a fishing tournament that goes for a good cause, right? I mean, Teen Challenge is really good. They really help the community and people make differences in their lives. They do it through fishing, which is a fun way to do it. They had a big harvest of support and a big harvest of fish.
That's awesome.
It was a great weekend.
Yeah.
I caught some walleyes. Some of them were big.
That is fantastic. Yeah, it was great to see you guys, you and your partner Michael, all jacked up, catching walleyes out there. So we're here now back in the studio and going to be heading out on the water soon. But for those of you that don't know, Kolo, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your history? And one of the things I want you to touch on is your Marathon Man title.
Oh, wow. We are going from the beginning. Okay. So I am a Polish kid from Gary, Indiana. That's so, but
you and Mike have that in common.
Yeah, see?
Well, I guess
Good.
not that. Mike's from the cities, but
I thought you meant Mike Jackson, my other brother. So, you know what? I loved fishing at age 6.
Yeah.
I hated to read. My mom was so smart. She's like, we're going to get this kid to read some way. We're going to give him In Fisherman magazine, Fishing Facts magazine.
Cool.
And as a kid, I began to devour all of the fishing content that was out there and developed a love for fishing. And that kind of went on from age 6 and whatever. And somewhere around, the early 90s, which is why you see the gray hair there, early 90s, I read an article of in Fish about a World Championships fishing team. And I thought, well, how cool would that be to be able to fish for your country? It was like the Olympics of fishing and opening ceremonies, closing ceremonies, et cetera. And I was like, I want to fish for the United States. And I'm thinking, how does a Polish kid from Gary, Indiana do that? But then God, he had a good plan. And so I met the coach at the Chicago O'Hare Show. We became friends. I fished my first World Championships in 1991.
Wow.
I was able to represent the United States in 7 World Championships of freshwater fishing. And out of that, I said, what a bummer if that's lost on me. Like if all these people poured into me, how do I give back? So I was at an event in Celebration Church in Lakeville, Minnesota, where I was living at the time. And I met a group called Fishing for Life. They were helping families that were in the military. Some of them were deployed. Some of them actually didn't come back. And like, what do we do with the kids? How do we teach them fishing, hunting? I partnered with them years ago and did a charity event where I fished for 24 hours straight. I met a retired Major Tom Goodrich at that event. And I said, Tom, I'm going to give you a day. I'm going to give you a day of my time, and let's go to all of the banks of the community. Let's have them donate $1 fish. I got this crazy skill. I can catch a bunch of fish. Awesome. So Tom says, yep, we'll have you fish for 24 hours and we'll call you the Marathon Man. I was like, whoa, bro, time out. I'm not fishing for 24 hours, like 8-hour shift, good hour lunch, 2 union breaks in there. Like, I'm for that. And he's like, no, 24 hours. And I thought, well, that's just nutty enough to do that. So fish for the first year, catch like 700 fish, and subsequent years would catch more. And the board of directors sat around one day and said, this is like a record. There's got to be some kind of record. We looked at the Guinness Book of World Records, and there was not a record established for the most fish in 24 hours. So in, I think it was 2011, we were able to establish a Guinness Book of World Records for most fish for 24 hours, which is 2,143. And then
Say that again.
I know, it just rolls off the tongue. 2,143 fish in 24 hours.
Wow.
And raised a bunch of money and helped some military families, and it was awesome. And I was like, this is my jam. This is why I was created. Like, I need to do this. And so, man, it's almost 20 years now. There's a few years that we missed for a number of reasons. But this last time I did it on the celebration just after 9/11 was 3,774 fish.
Man.
And it all goes for a good cause. So the Marathon Man effort is me sitting down, giving back to the community, helping families that have really served our country. I didn't serve in the military. I really appreciate those who do. And this is just a way to give back. And we're able to change some lives by raising some funds and getting after that. That is the Marathon Man. It's me giving back to the community, some people who serve our country and who I dearly love, most of whom I've never met and will never meet. But it's what drives me. It's my jam.
What a fantastic thing, Kolo. I mean, great person for doing that and organizing those things, and certainly do appreciate those efforts. So since this is a fishing podcast, though, why don't you tell us, how do you catch 3,000 fish in a day? Because I would sure like to know how to do that.
So somewhere in heaven, Ron Lindner is smiling, and Al just went like this, because it's all on live bait, actually. You know, Ron was a big live bait guy. Al's all artificials. But I mimic how I started fishing, and it's on a 10-foot cane pole. Like it's you know, a Wally Marshall, like a proper pole, a crappie pole, 10 feet of line, fluorocarbon, a balanced float, and some live bait. And that's what fish eat, especially when they're close. And so what I wanted to do, Jared, is I wanted to say, hey, if you've never caught a fish before, you think you'd like to go fishing, just copy what this nutcase does on a dock from shore for 24 hours. If you copy that, you're going to catch a bunch of fish, have a great time, make family memories, and you know, there's a good transfer of knowledge that way. So I keep it really simple. I do it from the bank, from a dock, 10 feet of pole, 10 feet of line, and just catch a pile of fish using live bait. And that's a lot of fish in one night and one day.
Yeah, that is a lot of fish. And it's cool that you're doing something like that with limited technology, a cane pole and some bait, because you do now currently.
The day job is different.
Yeah. So tell us about your current role.
I'm occupying the extreme ends of the spectrum here. So yeah, from cane pole, live bait onshore to boat, electronics, offshore, and finding fish. I just know that that's where people started. That's where I start. Yeah. And that's why the sport of fishing is so great. You can get into this at whatever level you want. Mm-hmm. You can be a psychopath like me, or you can be normal and just go fishing whenever. But that progression typically takes somebody from the bank onto a boat, and then the question becomes, well, I didn't have the ability to go around the lake and find fish because I'm not stuck on the bank, but now I do. So what now? And so, you know, modern electronics, and all of the suite of technologies that my brand, Humminbird, brings, puts people on fish, whether you're a professional or you're a novice or everywhere in between. There is technology that lifts your game up and makes it easier for you to find fish and stay on them. Both Humminbird and Minn Kota, I guess, would be active in that. So that's the day job of finding fish and helping people stay on them so that they have the memories that you and I did all these years, right? And I've been really blessed to travel around the country, in fact, the world, fishing. And you're at a wedding, a bar mitzvah, a bus stop, I don't care where you're at, the topic of fishing comes up, and people from across racial boundaries or socioeconomic boundaries, which I don't acknowledge at all. Fishing comes up and you're like instant friends. Whoa, I used to fish with my granddad. I just did this, I just did that. Fishing is this incredible language between people. And so my passion, as I mentioned earlier, the Marathon Man, plus the day job, really put me in a spot where I can have people enjoy fishing, but this time with technology on those Humminbird Minn Kota brands. Yeah,
and talk about iconic brands. I mean, what an awesome, Johnson Outdoors is, of course, a very valued partner of us here at Linder Media, and really iconic when you consider Minn Kota. How many years has Minn Kota been in business now? I think you just shared that.
90.
Yeah,
90 years.
Like a long time. Yeah. Obviously, Humminbird, long time.
Yes.
LakeMaster, you know. Now, I mean, that's coming on. LakeMaster's early 90s, so I mean,
it is.
30 plus years. So you've got all this, you know, and of course Canon and other brands in there too.
Yeah. So it is Humminbird and Minn Kota, and it is Canon as well. And all those brands work together. You know, one of the things that people don't necessarily know is that Humminbird and Minn Kota are the same company. We have engineers that spend a lot of time themselves fishing on the water and spending a lot of time developing products on the water together. So that marriage of Humminbird and Minn Kota, our mindset is, okay, how do we take boat control out of the issue? How do we make like from the trailing your boat, the experience, to the time you put your boat back on the trailer, how do we help that? You know, you got Talons and Raptors that help you at the dock, right? You've got a LakeMaster map or one boat network where you can sit at your desk. Not that I would do that on company time. And say, this is where I'm going to go fishing. This is where the fish should be. This is where we're going to set up pre-spawn or post-spawn, or here's our tournament. Hey, dude, here's the waypoints we're going to go. Like, that's what we obsess over. Both of those camps, Humminbird and Minn Kota, all those things of like, what do you do before you go fishing? What's it look like when you're on the water? And when you find those fish, when we help you find them, how do you stay on them and catch fish and have a great time and make memories?
Yeah, and you guys do a great job with that. I mean, so those who aren't familiar, like a lot of the marketing directive that we go through with this Minn Kota Humminbird deal is the one boat network. So it is cool that you have this system that the trolling motor and the depth finder, your phone, all of these things talk together. So for a lot of old school anglers, you might just consider, you know, if you're fishing, you're going to look at the map, you're going to look at your sonar, you're going to run your trolling motor with the foot pedal or remote or whatever. But you do make it easy, and I find this with a lot of people who are like really interested in getting more into fishing. They're going to step it up to the next level, where they're asking about features like, hey, do you use the follow the contour? Hey, what about drift mode? What about these go-to features? So they're, you know, a lot of those things where myself, I'm not saying that these aren't incredibly useful tools. Like, I'm just kind of programmed like, this is, I do this all the time. But then all of a sudden you see it and you're like, oh, I could actually use that in many situations too.
Totally. And you know what? The tagline for Humminbird is simply, clearly, better. We acknowledge that technology can be overwhelming. And like with our new EXPLORE family of units, we had a group of people that spent years doing this. And we wanted to launch it even some time ago, which is a simplified experience. Like, you come to a home screen, like your iPhone. How does this lay out? Where do I go? Here are my views. Here are my options. Here's the sonar connections. Like, you look at your home screen and like, oh, that's pretty simple. A few buckets. With a touch of the screen, it's all touch screen, you can figure out how you make your views pop up or your favorites, whatever. And you mentioned a number of those features. So, like, whether you follow a contour or whatever, go to a waypoint, your Humminbird is really smart. It's got some incredible technology in that Humminbird LakeMaster mapping in the middle, and that sort of interface talks to your Minn Kota motor, and it says, hey, motor, we know that we're in 11 feet, and Kolo or Jeremy over here says, I want to follow this 11-foot contour. Well, the LakeMaster map has that mapped within 1 foot. And so, as a user that doesn't want to mess around with boat control, and you're like, all of the walleyes, in your case, we're not far from Mille Lacs or wherever they happen, or crappies in Oklahoma, set up on this depth. And you can say, hey, motor, keep me in this depth and just drive at 1.1 miles an hour. And the motor does. And it's like 4 or 5 key presses, like 1, 2, 3, 4 touches of a screen. Your motor wakes up, takes off, and it follows that contour. And the only thing that you do as an angler is you fish. And that's our jam. We wanted to have a simplified menu system. We wanted to have a number of things that take boat control off of the table, so that if you want to start fishing, you know that the Humminbird and Minn Kota brands are yours. You know there's a big Welcome Arms, storied brands in their innovating motors for 90 years. Humminbird over 50 years. There's a lot of innovation in these brands, but it is our insane passion to make people enjoy their time on the water, and those are a couple things. You can follow a contour, touch a screen on an EXPLORE unit or your favorite family of units from us, mark a waypoint and tell your motor, go to that waypoint, and the motor takes you right there. When you're at the waypoint, it stops, and it stays there on spot lock, with Minn Kota being the originator of the original spot lock.
Yeah.
Very reliable in that sense.
It is. And so I do want to touch on this too, because I think this is useful information for a lot of anglers, and where we're at here in the upper Midwest. There are a lot of folks who have been loyal Helix users,
Yes.
you know, and so I've been like Onyx, Solix, Apex ever since those technologies came out. And so I do want to kind of drive this point home that I am a super user and I liked
No
using
shame.
Solix,
That's all good.
Apex. It is a very complicated menu system, was a very complicated menu system. Helix, super simple, but there was room for refinements. I would see things when I was using Helix. I'm like, oh, actually, Apex does it better. But now what's really cool is the operating system or the software has been merged into one, and there are a ton. I'm telling you, really cool, useful features. Waypoint management, for example, I have thousands of waypoints that I've cataloged over the years. I save every year. Many of them, I mean, I could have hundreds that are sitting in northern Saskatchewan, northern Minnesota, places that I may never return to.
Yeah.
But over time, that's a lot of stuff that now I don't have to like go try to figure out in this list. Like, oh, I'll just circle these on my screen. I'm going to export those. I'll go store them somewhere safely and clean my unit. You see what I'm saying?
I do.
That is amazing.
And it started with the Helix. And here's a little story. Since we're on a podcast and this is long form content, let's dive in. So there was a time I was serving formerly as the Humminbird brand manager at that time. And then my commanding officer, Jeff Davison, came to me and was like, Kolo, we need a new lineup. We have to get this sorted out. He's like, get to work on that. And that was my responsibility to do that. So I was like, okay, sir, yes, sir. All right, what do we do? And I thought, well, I wanted the Humminbird next generation of units to actually reflect the DNA of Humminbird. Simple, humble, hardworking. Our factory still is in Eufaula, Alabama, where we still employ hundreds of people throughout the year. And we make a difference in that local community with people that are 30-year veterans, right? I wanted that to reflect what Humminbird is and was then and still is, even more now. And I was like, man, that's the DNA of Humminbird. And so science background, I was like, that's kind of like a helix, like the alpha helix, the very thing, things that make a Humminbird. And I could see like the ad campaign, humble, hardworking, by hands right in Eufaula. And I could see this kind of ad campaign. And so I went out and trademarked the name Helix at the time. And he called me up and he's like, Kolo, months went by. He's like, Kolo, we got it. We got the screens, we got everything. He's like, you got that name? Yes. And so that's how the Helix was born.
Cool.
Now, the reason why that's relevant is when we came up with the EXPLORE family, we did so because we couldn't shove any more information into a Helix. Like if we had a sledgehammer, there's nothing more like in terms of chipset that we could do with Helix. It had reached its time. In fact, we had borrowed time on that. And so when we came out with the EXPLORE series, we're like, wow, we can make all the software talk with the Helix, or we cannot. And we came up with a decision that said we have to go forward, and it's not going to talk with the existing older Helix units because it's just the lift and the time is literally years of work. We're going to go forward to the new model of units, the EXPLORE units, and but what we're going to do is we're going to change the experience for the people. We're going to make it even easier than Helix was. We are going to give them waypoint management, which is a good example because you get a bunch of waypoints, you don't know what they are, and on a Helix you had to press buttons, and naming that was a nightmare. I'm here to say it. Very much easier on EXPLORE. You get more color palettes on EXPLORE. The screen is brighter than ever. It's probably the most readable screen on the market right now when you're out in sunlight. It's a touch screen, the EXPLORE. You can touch and hold and go to a waypoint. You can do all these things. And then at the end of the day, the EXPLORE unit comes with like 13,000 LakeMaster water bodies. So like if you were fishing, I saw you at the border going into Canada one day, right? And no matter where you fish, you're going to have a lake map that is Humminbird LakeMaster quality, 1-foot contour. The new EXPLORE units have 13,000 of those waters built right in. There's a ton of reasons why EXPLORE, okay, the grandfather of Helix. I had a little tear going down my eye. That's why I gave you the background. To tell you, I was sad when Helix went away. That's the truth. I was sad. But then when I fired up the first EXPLORE, I was indoors. I was like, oh, that's easier. Oh, that's touchscreen. Okay, I get that. Wait a minute, I can touch and hold and mark a waypoint? And when a waypoint pops up, you've got a color, you've got an icon, you can customize those in literally 5 seconds or less. You can write, I marked a waypoint on Lake Erie 2 weeks ago. 5-pounder is where he caught a 5-pounder from. It's really quick and easy. So there's a lot of reasons why I have now become an Explorer fan, but
Yeah, and I think they're great too. And it's kind of one of those things that when you're using this for the first time, and you look at it and you're like, oh, I wonder how I would do something like that. It's actually simpler than you think. Like what I've kind of noticed with it, you're like overthinking so many of these things. Oh, I want to, okay, I need to adjust the sensitivity on my side imaging. I'm thinking menu, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, it's actually,
it's right
there's
there.
A button right there.
It's one of the features that Explorer is really great in the new user interface. It's super simple. There are little touch targets. There's like plus or minus on your sensitivity, plus or minus on your depth. And so depending which technology you're on, like plus or minus for your map, you just touch that little minus button and your map zooms out. You touch the plus button on your unit and it zooms in, and it's really fast. So the processors that we put in the Explorer series are way faster than anything we've done.
Way faster, yeah. It's noticeable. If you're a Humminbird user and you turn on Explorer, I'm just telling you, you'll be impressed too. And the other thing I noticed, like I'm not gonna lie, when I unboxed the units this year, I saw the transducer, the SI deucer wasn't the same. I'm like, oh man, is this a compact deucer? Am I not gonna get the same readout? Because I use side imaging a lot.
Yeah.
Love it. Super
user, right?
Yes. Awesome. Like it is incredibly high performing. The detail is incredible. So those worries have been really, as soon as I turn it on, I'm like, oh yeah, man, this is dynamite. You know?
In fact, I placed a call to the engineers. I was like, I have the longer transducer on my boat. I said, do I leave this or not? And the man behind the transducer science goes like, your choice, bro. You can leave it and not do the install, or you can put the new one on, but you're not going to notice any difference at all, which is really comforting. When you see that smaller transducer, we have just continued to refine all of the hardware, all the software. And because I'm on the other side of the curtain, on the other side of Oz's curtain, you know, making all the stuff, there is a harmony between the hardware and the software. Like you can have really good hardware and really good software, but they got to jive together and they've got to do really well. And so a lot of the effort that we put in making the units is to harmonize that and optimize how does the hardware and software work. And that's the reason why that transducer is really good, even in a smaller size.
Yep. Oh, it's great. I absolutely love it. And the system just works really well together. And so, you know, now too, like the units, you know, like I have both Apex and Explorer in the boat and they talk together seamlessly. There's everything looks the same once you do the update. So it really is it's just an awesome system. And I want to add one more thing is that, to the waypoint management deal, it was, I'm just going to say, extremely challenging to take if you went from Helix to Apex and figure out how do I get waypoints onto this, right? Like it was hard.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, it was very challenging.
Like I'm a realist. Yes.
Yeah. And so
actually, that's putting it politely, Jerry. I appreciate you being a nice guy because you could use some other language there.
But I'm telling you now, you just doesn't matter. No. Download them, stick it in there, and it's like just bam.
Yes.
I mean, it happens. They're converted. Everything's the same. Super easy. So if you've had any of that anxiety about losing waypoints or whatever, if you've ever had that experience switching between the different platforms within Humminbird,
and
no
you
worries.
can take other companies' units, right? And you can take those waypoints and put them seamlessly, easily into an Explorer unit. And that's just one of those things that, you said it earlier, I will mark thousands of waypoints, and it might be a weed line or whatever. Man, at the end of the year, I have no idea what there are. I pull up the map. I'm like, I got a bunch of dots on this reef or this weed line. Must have been good. Let's go over there. But now you can label those with weed edge, down timber. In fact, there are icons for each one of those in the simplified world of Explorer. And you just touch that one. So you touch and hold your screen, and it says waypoint. It pops up your favorites. You get to choose from 6 or 7 colors, 5 or 6 icons, what that is, and you can select those all easily. But the fishing part now, we're even simplifying that. Like we make it easier for you to find the fish on the map, LakeMaster, Humminbird LakeMaster. We make it easier for you to find it with side imaging. Still the best in the game. I recognize I have a logo on my shirt, my jersey. I get that. Still the best in the game. You've got 360 imaging that will help you understand where in reference to me is the point I want to fish. I want to keep my boat out 30 feet or 40 feet of casting distance. 360 imaging allows you to understand where is that feature I'm casting to, where are the fish, you get to see those on there as well. And then you can go to another technology like Mega Live and go, okay, are the fish here or not here? But our whole mindset is get people fishing and let them show them a good time. Make memories. How do we do that? Make the trailering experience easy with Minn Kota's Raptor, Talon. Make that easy. Make finding the fish easy with Hummingbird's suite of technologies. Not just one technology, but all of those. Side imaging, LakeMaster, 360 imaging, live. Down imaging, still pretty good. Saw a bunch of fish on DI yesterday that I was like, those are definitely fish. And then, man, once you find them, you take your Ulterra, your Ultrix, or your Tarova. Like if you've got a Tarova still and it's got spot lock, keep running that motor. It's awesome, right? Mm-hmm. And that's probably one of the best motors we've ever done, especially in the multi-species world, is the Tarova. And we keep that one in the lineup because it's so good.
Well, it's popular,
Spot lock, stay on the fish, and go have a great time.
Yeah.
That's our thinking.
It is. Well, and it works. The system just completely works. It's absolutely fantastic. So you hit on a few of those technologies, and I kind of want to get into a little bit more controversial topics with technology here.
I
But
do like awkward. I don't mind awkward.
Yeah,
but
So
I might. Go ahead.
I just want to just touch base for people who may not be that familiar with these sonar technologies that Jeff and I are talking about. And you jump in here, Kolo. But when I'm looking at the sonar technologies, I'm considering 2D sonar, down imaging, like you mentioned, side imaging, and now forward-facing sonar. And for 2D sonar, when I'm using this tech, primarily it's being used for quickly searching locations. I'm often quickly looking to see what the depth is, if there's any changes in obviously depth. I can see bottom composition, I can see bait, those things, but it's primarily a high-speed search tool. Mm-hmm. Down imaging and side imaging and 360 imaging are really the same technologies, that high-frequency, razor-thin beam that's able to really, from a down imaging perspective, really truth what you see. So if you're an angler that's gone over a weed bed or maybe seen a bunch of bait, you're just seeing kind of clutter, things, shapes that you're not really sure, what is that on 2D? Look at your down imaging, and if it's plants, you can see the vertical stalks of cabbage. If it's minnows, you'll see little tiny dots. If it's fish, you'll see, bigger dots. So it's a really good means of truthing what your 2D's for. Side imaging, of course, amazing tool for helping you find fish. This applies to 360 also. But understanding bottom composition, it paints a picture of what is on the bottom. Absolutely one of the best angling tools ever to understand bottom composition. And in the right bottom, softer bottom, sand, you can see fish. Don't count on side imaging to show you fish in a boulder pile.
Right.
It's difficult.
The physics of sonar just don't work well with that, no matter what.
Yeah, why don't you explain that quick?
So sonar for normal people, very basic stuff. I'm not good at seeing underwater, right? And so your Costas or whatever, your favorite glasses, Bahias, whatever you want to wear, you can't see underneath the water, but sonar helps you see that. Sonar says, one, you're in 10 feet of water or 4 feet of water, don't run aground, right? So sonar is very helpful in helping you understand what's below the boat. Works very simply. In your transducer that you mentioned earlier, there is, without getting too deep, a little sound signal that's emitted. And it sounds like a little tick, 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 tick. If you're in your garage, you can turn your sonar on. Don't leave it on forever, but you can hear it audibly as a human. That sound wave goes through the water column, and it keeps going because it's directional. And it keeps going until it hits something. In this case, the bottom, like the table here. It will hit the bottom, and that sound wave will reflect off in an echo. Just like dolphins use an echo to find fish in the bottom, and they know where they're at. That's what we're using, is an echo. And so that people that, Jared, that actually paid attention in school when I was cutting class and going fishing. They know all the physics of the sound, time, and intensity, and they're able to measure in very precise ways how long did that sound echo come to get back. And then what happens is your unit, your Humminbird, paints out one line of pixels, or a pixel right there. Right? And so on your screen, it prints out one pixel. It turns out it's 11 feet deep, and it sends another sound pulse and another and another. And each time there's a pixel that points out, well, or that prints out. And so now your screen, as it scrolls left to right, think about it, just the sum of all those pixels. And when the bottom is shallower, the pixels get higher. When it's deeper, those pixels get deeper, and it shows you a line at the bottom as you're going along. That's what Sonar does. So what's nice is you get to understand what's below the boat. But like I'm looking at all these fish back here, a lot of those fish are smart. Big fish are smart. They don't get caught by sitting under the boat all the time in shallow water. So some really smart people said, I'm going to take that sonar beam, instead of looking down, I'm going to shoot it out to the side. So that's how side imaging was born. So that same sonar pulse goes out to the side, and it says, okay, I'm going to go as far out as possible until I hit something, right? And it comes back and reflects. And that intensity is also determined to show, like you mentioned, rocks or sand or mud or weeds. And you don't have to have a PhD, especially in bottom transitions, to go, there's something there. Rocks go to sand. And you see that wave on your unit. It's clear as day. So we want to bring people, we want to demystify what's underneath the water. We want to be able to say, when you're using your Humminbird side imaging, you can see the rocks, the sand, the weed edges, the submerged stuff that's below there that's going to hold fish. And we know that we bring that with excellence into the marketplace, and it helps people find where the fish are at. So that's the sonar part. Now, you touched on something earlier. We've got 360 imaging that's kind of like underwater radar, right? That looks around your boat. So all those technologies, it's a good point, are good when your boat's moving. Yeah. If you're going to sit in the same spot, your sonar is just like you're over the same depth. You're not moving anywhere. There's nothing really new for you. So we came out with 360 imaging, very innovative product that said, okay, well, in the aviation world, we have a radar. You get to see all of the aircraft or whatever else is around you. Let's do that underwater. Let's do that. We think we could do that. Let's look straight down on the bow of your boat, like you're in the center of this circle, and you can see in 360 degrees, how does the topography lay out? Where's that break line? And am I too far or too close to those fish? That's why 360 is helpful. Not because you're moving, but that's the one sonar that works well when you're not moving. Mm-hmm. Down imaging, sonar, side imaging, that helps you find the fish. What do you do when you're sitting still and you found them? You flip on 360 and you go, okay, there's a school of bait moving through. I kind of get to see it. So over the years, the market has seen innovations in sonar. Live sonar has been a thing for quite some time. And that's like the next horizon of how do you, when you're fishing, understand where the fish are at and be able to see very helpful things like the fish itself or your lure. And so we stand on the edge of this thing called live sonar. And I think you were going to dive into that.
Yeah, well, so from my experience being here, Mikey, jump in if you have anything else to add to this, but there was never really any pushback from viewership. I would say, like when we talked about 360 imaging or side imaging, talking about AutoChart Live, a lot of these different technologies like used to help you catch fish. The objection might be like, oh yeah, well, you guys are rich fishermen and you get free product or whatever it is, show us something that the average angler can afford, because it is expensive, but they also know that this is our passion. This is what we do. We live for it, right? So, and that's us. We should absolutely teach people how to use less tech to be successful. But with live, we receive a lot of feedback. So, especially like, you guys have been fishing for 30 years. Why do you need this crutch? This is cheating. This isn't fair. It has really blown up this conversation. And so do you think side imaging or 360, to your point, could show you where fish were? It's not real time, This shows you where they are. So this is a discussion about is and was.
Yes.
You
Very
know,
good.
Yep.
Great way to summarize that. Go ahead.
No, I want.
So,
Mike, do you have anything to add to that before Kolo jumps in?
No, I think you explained it pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
so I like how you frame that up. It's where fish were and where they are. And so there's a mindset difference. And you, and I know that you've been at the forefront of getting like, hey, we hate live sonar because it's cheating, right? All you have to do is go to any blog, watch any fishing tournament, watch any fishing show, and you're going to have people that are like, I hate live sonar, and everyone that uses it, I wish they would get indigestion or whatever, like terrible thing, right? We're on a family show, so we're not saying
Indigestion,
exactly
that's
what they're really
polite,
saying.
yeah.
It was overly polite. That's not how the internet reads right now. Or there are people like, I love this. It's a tool. I never caught more fish, whatever. And so we find ourselves in these two sort of camps, and it regrettably mirrors like even people's thoughts on policy and things in the country,
does.
right? Very polarized. And so I look at that, and I'm right in the middle of that. And I like how you framed it up too. Like nobody ever had as much, grief about side imaging. Now, when we came up with mapping and it was that detailed, people are like, it shouldn't be out there. You get guides on unspecified guides. I know a few right now, like my body's going to get mapped and I don't like that, because I knew where everything was. It is part of technology and it always goes forward. And our lives, to a degree, are made better by technology, but there's always a responsibility that goes along with that. Like if I can travel at my car at 130 miles an hour, which I cannot, but like how fast do I go? Do I go so fast that it's thrilling for me and a detriment to the people around me? Or, because I can harvest 6 walleyes or whatever, do I do that every day? Like it's up to me. And so over the years, technology has continued to march forward. Whether I like it or not, or you like it or not, it continues to evolve. And we come up to this part about this live sonar thing, and here's the gig. You're able to see everything. Like I talked about earlier, like Humminbird, we want to demystify what's going on underneath the water. That does it.
Yeah, you did that. Yep.
When you look at a sonar beam and you say, that's a fish because it's moving across my screen, and for those of you who have not looked at a live sonar, it's okay, but you see the fish actually move. That's why we call it live sonar. In your other technologies, that fish was just kind of painted on there, and now you're watching it move. So you don't have to be a fish nerd to know that that's a fish. It's moving, it's a fish. It's not a leaf in the water. With live sonar, you can also see your lure. Pretty awesome. So if you're going to throw a jig or let's say a jerkbait, because I know a guy that caught a gigantic dinosaur walleye in that tournament, by the way. That was a 8.5-pound dinosaur. Nice work. So you're throwing a jerkbait or whatever you're doing, or a hair jig, and you see it on your live sonar. And now you know, hey, that's my lure, and that's the fish. And so all that you can do to make those two come together, that's what you do to catch more fish using live sonar. It's really helpful to see your lure and the fish. That's the benefit of having a live sonar, because that's where the fish are right now. You wind up seeing a lot more fish. Fact. You wind up catching a lot more fish. I would call that a fact too. That's my maybe opinion. Fact.
Well, that's interesting coming from a manufacturer selling it, because there's like, to me, there's one of these things that's going on right now is like we're arguing about the efficacy of forward-facing sonar. Like it's a mystery if it helps you catch more fish. My response would be, it can. Catch rates are always variable. How are you using it? What are all these different variables that are involved with it? It fundamentally changes fishing. So real-time sonar is not new. A flasher could tell you in real time it's just on a different plane, right? So and there were concerns about sonar in the 1970s in the Minnesota legislature. Sure. There was legislation proposed to limit the paper graph, right? This is going to have huge impacts on fishing.
Forgot about that.
Yep. So how we manage it, and I think you brought up a good point, and that's a strong argument for like, it's not the technology that's harming the resource, it's the users. So it's the personal responsibility that people have to take. That is all great. However, if people were willing to be responsible with natural resources, we would not need natural resource management or regulations.
Good point.
So right now, and I personally feel this is the biggest issue that we're facing, and this can maybe lead into what some ASA discussions, is that the means in which Johnson Outdoors, Garmin, Brunswick are innovating technology is massively outpacing the means in which agencies, meaning DNR Natural Resources, can adapt to management strategies, meaning they can understand fish populations, they can understand the anglers' attitudes towards this technology and what the final outcomes might be. 5 years ago, this stuff didn't exist really in any, it wasn't supported by users. Mikey's trying to get some panfish regs for the last 15 years, and so like, how do you compete with that? I mean, you look at where your technology was 15 years ago to you guys having this discussion, like so to me, that's where this real conflict, intersects, is how do we manage users, the resource, and the technology that is a positive outcome for the fishery? Because I think we can all agree, if we don't have a fishery,
100%.
we don't have a business.
100%. So I'm going to go out wide and I'll come in narrow.
Yep.
And so I look at, there was a time when LakeMaster had a horsepower maximum, right? And I forgot what it was. Was it 150 or whatever the number was? Now it's not, right? So we have outboard engines that are incredibly strong. We can go for, some of those competitive anglers are going like 80, 100 miles and then coming back. We can cover more water. I happen to be in a Lund boat, an impact, right? It's a floating tackle store.
Yeah.
So I have every lure at my disposal, everything that I could do to catch fish. I have Sonar on there to help me find fish. I have great maps to help me find fish. We understand, just by reading Al's works and Ron's works for generations, we understand where fish go. The fish location presentation equals success, FOPS, right? That's not changed. We know more about fish than ever before. Here's one other thing that we've overlooked in the conversation. Not only are we dealing with real-time sonar, we're dealing with real-time information.
Absolutely.
Your boy is out and he's hammering them on, let's say, Mille Lacs, because it's close to the studio here. Within 15 minutes where whoever was, right? And you know what they're fishing for, what they're fishing with, what time of day they went, exactly where they were. We know all of that. The entirety of technology has changed. As part of that, so has fish finding sonars, live sonar being one of them. And so all of those things work together to make anglers way more effective than they've ever been. So from the boat, the motors, the trolling motor, the spot lock, the everything, right? We're more effective than we've ever been.
Cumulative effect of all the tech.
It is a cumulative, that's a great word to describe it. It's a cumulative refinement in technology. Live sonar is one of those. It's very powerful. And one of the things that we all do, even when you're in a local tavern league of fishing or whatever, like how many fish do you catch? How many do you keep? And what do you do with the fish? So now, for a generation, we said we have a live well. There's a reason why your boat has a live well, to keep the fish alive. You weigh them in, you release them alive, unharmed, back in the resource. They make more bass and more walleyes, whatever. They make more little fish. That's why I want them alive. There is a reason to tread lightly on the resource and to understand all this time that every one of these innovations, the outboard engine, the hull that we fish in, everything has been built to be more efficient when you're fishing. And now we're at this part where the live sonar is a big one. And I would say, Jer, our responsibility as anglers in the same way remains unchanged. Go back and pull up, and I'm going to use Al because he's a lovely human being, but look at Al and Ron. There were days they had stringers of bass over their shoulders. They didn't need live sonar to do that, right? They went home and they made a fish fry. I'm not throwing shade on anybody, but that was the mindset. And as fishing became better understood, fish behaviors through biology became better understood, we went as a collective world of anglers, are like, man, probably can't keep all those fish like we used to because the fishing in such and such lake ain't so good anymore. So we can't keep all those fish. So we have made, as anglers and good stewards of the resource, adjustments over time. It is reasonable to think that, and you know what else? I don't know if the DNR really had to tell us to say you can only keep 10 bass. We went to catch and release because we realized we're going to catch all the fish in the lake. As anglers, we did that for ourselves. So now that after the catch and release movement is in effect, I think we're at a time where we just have to look at ourselves and go, look, we were put on planet Earth to be good stewards of all creation. Fact. How good of a job are we doing at the end of the day? How good are the crappie, the walleye, the bass, the whatever populations, the big bluegills, right? I have a very special place in my heart for bluegills, Mr. Marathon Man.
Yeah.
30,000 of those in competition. You keep some of the larger big bluegills in a body of water and they don't come back. That's a bad one. So as anglers and as conservationists, as good stewards of the resource, what are we doing? And it is my personal goal that it's different when someone says, this is law and you have to abide by this. I hate to have to get to that point where somebody's got to tell me what to do because I may not like what that is, right? So for me, I like it when I can still have a choice of what we're doing and also help the resource. So it's really for us to say, am I keeping too many fish? Sometimes it's good to leave them biting and come back the next day, right? If I come up into a school, there was a big pre-spawn, we were out in Mille Lacs the other day, pre-spawn fish and some post-spawn, whatever, but they're all eating the bugs right now. And if I come up to a school and I catch all the fish in one day, some guy coming behind me isn't going to catch any either. So it's a mindset that says we have to conserve not only the fish that we harvest, are we harassing them at a time where they're critical in their life, on the beds or whatever? We're really going to have to come as anglers, be good stewards of the resource, understand that technology has really pushed things forward, and manage the resource better. Final thought on that. Departments of Natural Resource, by and large, do a really good job, right? I've caught fish in the state of Minnesota for a long time, in Wisconsin. Texas does an amazing job, in my opinion, watching over their fisheries. So what they do is they manage by data. They manage and they say, here are the creel surveys, here are the catch rates. So whatever I would say would be enacted or not enacted to govern live sonar or technology, it's got to be data driven. It can't be emotionally from me. It can't be emotionally from somebody else, even with good intentions, right? So there is this lag period where you have to observe what's going on as the science, how many fish are being caught, where are the fish catch rates at, and is there something that we can do to make that be better? And that's where I think a Department of Natural Resources would give their counsel or recommendations.
So I'm going to push back on that a little bit with the data-driven thing. And I'll give you an example here. And I am not, we're on the same team here. This is just a very thoughtful. So I'm going to give, I'm sorry for anybody who's listening because I have this special spot for muskies, but they're so unique in that we don't have a harvest component involved with this. We have if you want to dive into the muskie management history of Minnesota, that's a whole other thing that would add to this. So when we talk about something that is data driven, okay, so if we're going to look at sharpshooting muskies in open water, we're going to look at a body of water. We have absolutely zero idea on what the adult population of this fishery is. No idea.
In a finite sense, we do not
know. No, we have zero sense of what this is. So what data are we gathering? What are we measuring? Okay, so we know that we don't really know the truth of what anglers are reporting with muskies because people do not want to share that information.
You know that.
A lot of the people who catch most of them are out at night. They're going at they're not surveyed. So we don't, and so we're going to make these data. We're going to make data. We're going to make decisions based on incomplete data, right? So I really do think we have to investigate what is the quality of the data because I'm not out to argue science. I'm absolutely in favor of science, but there are also situations where you're going to go, okay, if this guy was really good at fishing open water before this technology existed, with these other cumulative effects of knowing locations from social media. People are catching fish on this lake or in this area with this fancy boat with all these things. They might have a great day out there trolling, and they had 5 rips and they got 3. That's amazing. I mean, that is really amazing. Now, this same guy, instead of having that 1 3-fish day in a month-long period, goes out and catches 7, then 4, then 2, then 9, then 8, and catches more in a short window than he's caught in a season in his life.
Fair scenario.
What does that mean? And whether the fish lives or dies, that is clearly going to change the opportunity outcome for the user who does not have this technology to use it in this place and values the experience of muskie fishing traditionally. So
Jerry, you've laid out a scenario where we have incomplete data, but I'm going to use words you didn't. So shut me down if I'm not preaching good. So it's showing a trend, but we just don't have data confirm the trend. Is that a fair summary? Something like that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So in that scenario, look, data confirms the things that we see and we know. There are things, if we make decisions by data alone, you are going to make wrong decisions because the data is trending in a way or is administered or captured in a way that isn't complete. Data is not my God. It's a good indicator, it's a good barometer, but it's not the author, the defining part of the world.
Sure, yeah.
So as humans, I'm going to default to this. As humans, we are authorized. It's our responsibility to be good stewards of planet Earth, period. And so how do we do that? In your scenario, the critical difference was there was an adverse reaction to the fishery by catch rates. And we know because muskies, look, they go a little deeper in the summertime. The water temp is cooler there. That's where they like to be. If we catch them from deeper water, there's a barotrauma that can happen, right? The barometric pressure is different from the fish. The temperature is different for those fish. They fight hard to get released in warm water. It's not good for them. That's not really captured in data. But as intelligent beings authorized to take good care of the resource, you have to go, man, I can find them, but maybe I shouldn't be catching them here.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And so, and you brought up also just the education and the responsibility. So I would not want to be sitting if it was.
Oh, it's a hot seat right now.
Yeah, well, to make a regulatory decision on this, like this is very complicated. You have to absorb all these different viewpoints. So absolutely, education is a huge component of this. But there's also at some point in time there needs to be maybe because I just don't see that humans in history, when it comes to wildlife management, when humans have had access to a wildlife resource yes, exactly. Like we don't have a good history of being like, you know what, let's just stop short of this. You know, like we can do this. So I don't disagree with you, but I also think we need to look back at history and say, we should be aware of this, and I think you're spot on, Kolo. Yep, let's keep pushing this. We do want to have data. We do want to understand how fisheries may be impacted by technology, but there's also times when you might want to just say, hey, time out. Like, maybe we should just before this tech, like how would omnidirectional sonar all of a sudden that comes into place today? That has
right now.
Yeah, right. But into freshwater that has AI assistance that can navigate your boat, take you to the fish, identify the fish, have a mechanical thing. Like
100%.
Like what? Okay, so are there steps? We're not only talking about fish, but we're also talking about the experience as well. Because fishing is more than just catching. If your only metric of fishing is catching, that's completely different than these intangibles that we really value. Time with your friends, the beauty of the resource, the difficulty of what it was to catch it. Your experience on Gull Lake, you hadn't caught a walleye in forever. You got 3 walleye, amazing. Like that those experiences have tremendous value. And so it's more than just the fish. And so as we look at technology, we also have to somehow incorporate some of those elements that people still value, where it's not just a technology arms race to catch as many fish as possible. And we set this up as the only metric of success is how many did you catch? Because fishing is more than that.
that, and I hope I still have a job after this. I hope I'm still.
I do too. I hope you're still
Otherwise, I
sponsoring
think Linder Media is
Angling
going to have
Edge
the
after I'm
best,
just
cleanest
attacking you on
bathrooms
this.
in the world in this county. I used to work retail. I've cleaned a lot of toilets. I will come work for you guys and clean bathrooms. I hope I'm still employed after this. But I would say that all that technology works in a way that gives you an experience. And our job at Humminbird and Minn Kota is to provide that experience. When we make technologies, we are aware of how powerful they are, but there is also a benefit to some of those, right? So for somebody who maybe is raised on video games and their whole world, their universe is two-dimensional, it's seeing things go across the screen, they go out into a cold, misty day. It's not very fun sometimes to be out on the water. But when they see a screen, they're interacting with the fish, they know it's a fish, and they're lit up by that. They love fishing. For us, when we make these technologies, it's how do we make the experience for the angler? How do we set that table with a suite of technologies that works together that says, man, I've wanted to go fishing all my life. I don't know what, but we're getting a boat and we're going to go do this. Or single mom, single dad, don't care what your background is, don't care what your socioeconomic, city, country, wherever you come from. Our job is to make fishing available to you and have you go take after that. The question that you're kind of saying is, given all that technology, what do you do with it? I would say become part of the process.
That's a
I
great
know
point.
that DNR meetings, they can get pretty hot, right?
Sure.
And so do you. But I would say become part of the process and advocate for your position, because like iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens another. We come to good things and we come to things. So you and I talking about this in a civilized way can help us figure out what the right thing is. It could be legislation, it could not be, I don't know. But I would say become part of the process in a civilized way. No one takes your position if you're going to yell at them and be ugly. Like if you're going to be all crazy and rabid, no one's going to listen to you. Come, talk, have some data, and come up with some policies. I think if we can do that, heads of state will be able to better guide the fisheries and hear what both those concerns are on side. You know, you said earlier, like 50% people love live sonar, 50% of people hate it. I just look at it as another tool and go, okay, I learned a lot from the fish. So it's funny that, you know, I was out in the water and threw a bait out there, and this one was like a hair jig. And it goes down, you watch it, and then the fish goes, and they just swim away. And I'm like, well, clearly they didn't like that.
Yeah.
And then a jerkbait goes out and you're slapping it, right? And the fish comes up and look at it and they just dart. And you're like, okay, they didn't like that one. Then you throw, let's say, a drop shot on a fish or whatever, and then a fish comes into your live sonar. You're watching this in real time, all these scenarios, and all of a sudden you see two more on there. And you're like, okay, that's what they want. Live sonar has become an incredible fish learning tool for people. And so that's the front side plus, right? I'm with you. There is a backside responsibility to all that we do as conservationists, as good stewards of the resource. Am I creating so much wake in a body of water that I'm eroding the shoreline and changing the vegetation, right? There's a lot of things that we need to look at. And I would just say become part of the process in a civilized way, use some data, use some good intellect, and say, are we making the right decisions here? And work together to find that. I'm not smart enough to tell you the answer. I freely admit that.
Yeah, well, I think you've got a good position on it. It's really cool, Kolo, that you can have such an open discussion on this. And you really did highlight this. So I certainly did not mean to be like, this is an attack on tech,
I think
because
you
I
should.
value.
I welcome that. I don't mind that.
No, but of course, as a student of angling my whole life, I know how incredibly awesome and cool this suite of technologies is, and the access to information that this gives me to help me catch more fish. I am keenly aware of that, and it is fun. It is cool. It's a huge learning experience. Of course, I'm conflicted processing this stuff, understanding where you're using this best. How does this, and you start to just, as you play this through, as the technology proliferates, it improves. What does this mean? And so, of course, you're trying to forecast these things, but the technology, if you want it to, if it can absolutely make the experience much more enriched. I mean, it can do, and it can give you so much information. The side imaging, when side imaging first came out, it was cool. Like you could go like, there's stuff out there, like we should throw over there. And then mega side imaging came out and you went like, whoa,
there are 5 boulders,
yeah,
not 3
man,
big
this
ones,
is
right?
insane.
And look at that, there's a little taper of the clay going to sand.
And so that was fun. And you could just get caught
change.
up just driving, looking, habitat assessing. So anyway, there's definitely a lot to digest there, and certainly do appreciate the openness in that. Before we wrap up, there's just one more topic I want to hit on, and that is ASA. You've been involved with ASA for a long time. Can you tell us what ASA is, what ASA is advocating for, and what you're out there
It's
you're
funny
doing?
you mentioned this. So I've been blessed to be a part of the fishing industry for a good long time. And like other industries, there's an industry representative group that deals with this very thing of live sonar and this thing called tariffs, right? So there's a lot of things in the fishing business world that require a sort of overseers, a good group to say, are we as an industry making good decisions? And by the way, who's going to stand up for our points of view in Washington, D.C., in legislation or state to state, for instance, when somebody, well-meaning or otherwise, say we're going to ban lead. You can't use a lead sinker anymore. And then, like people like the ASA have gone back and pushed back and said, well, wait a minute, is that really the cause of why these effects are happening in the ecosystem or not? Or if someone says, nope, you can't fish here ever again because of we think it's the right thing to do. That is like an outside agency totally imposing their view on fishing. It would be similar if you just said there is no live sonar involved, legal ever, or everyone must use live sonar. It's that somebody's making a decision based on their own feelings or their opinion. ASA has been an organization, the American Sport Fishing Association, has said, well, wait a minute. Our principles are we want to have a thriving fishery that relies on clean water and available fish stocks. Because if you don't have those, you don't have fishing and you certainly don't have the industry component. So from an industry standpoint, they are the industry godfathers, benefactors, advocates for the sport and for the anglers. And there is a very, like a Navy SEAL team or special operators do a lot with a little. This is a team that does a very few people that do a lot with a little. And they primarily say, hey, there are people in whatever state. Soft plastics in the Northeast were going to be banned. It was supposed to be banned years ago. I'm like, well, time out. That's not how the science is. That's not what it is. And they fought and held off legislation that would have banned both lead and soft plastics. There would be no bass fishing in those regions of the country and state by state. They've done incredible work. They've done great work in saltwater and in freshwater. It's a group that is charged to go up to D.C. and say, hey, Senator so-and-so, hey, Congressman so-and-so, we know that you're on this committee. We know that there's some very well-funded entities coming into Washington, D.C. Not sure if you're aware of that. Here's this much smaller group that advocates for clean waters, healthy fish stocks, and a thriving industry and say, wait a minute, hey, we're the little guys here, but we represent all these 60 million anglers, almost 60 million anglers, 54 or something like that bought licenses last year. We represent all these people, and here's what's really happening. We want to inform you on what the anglers are speaking out about, and we're representing them. Please make your legislative decisions with the people in mind and the fisheries in mind, not just a special interest. The group does a great amount of good for the fisheries. And so as somebody, like earlier, I said, hey, I've been really blessed in fishing. I want to give back. I do give back to the ASA and help them stay abreast of those things and give my personal time and professional time to say, look, I'll help you work out. I'll help you understand some of these policy, the technology things, so you can go and represent us. Right now we're working on a lot of economic things like tariffs. How does that, affect fishing? And fishing is unique, and I don't know that the viewers know this. So there is an excise tax that whether you make lures or tackle or whatever it is, there are different categories, but there is a percentage of revenues for every piece of tackle that's sold or imported in the United States. Every time it's sold, we tax ourselves as a fishing community. We said we recognize the fact that we need fisheries, boat launches, healthy fish stocks. We're going to tax ourselves, and we're going to take those dollars and set them aside for fish stocking, for boat launch establishment. And so there is a fishing funded effort and no matter where you're at, like almost all categories pay a tax, and that were around when it was established, right? They take those dollars and they do those for fishing's good. And so as part of the ASA and other organizations, they direct some of those funds and work to make fisheries better. So that's a very complicated set of revenues and dispersal. But I would just tell you, in general, the ASA does an incredible job maintaining fish stocks, keeping clean water, and helping people fish, and managing an industry through tough times of tariffs and live sonar and all the other things.
Well, that's awesome that you're out there advocating for that. And you hit on this earlier, Kolo. If you're an angler, you love fishing, try to be involved with organizations like ASA. If you're listening here in Minnesota, we've got an organization called MinFish where we're trying to do that at the state level. So it's important for anglers to have a voice out here. And be heard, especially where the lawmakers are at. There's a lot of people with a lot more money who have a lot more time who can sit and advocate for their special interests at the Capitol. And so it's awesome that we're being looked out for there with ASA. And thanks for your service on that board, and appreciate it. And we may have to cut here, but I also want to hit on this. So we don't have to hit on this. So but we'll just do this if it works. If it doesn't, and you can just give me the bird if you don't. So, Kolo, you're talking about this excise tax, which is the Dingell-Johnson tax. Yep. So that's fishing. Pittman-Robertson is for wildlife management. So these funds are collected at a federal level. They're dispersed back to the state level, and then the agencies can use those how they see fit for fisheries or wildlife management purposes. There is a category that is exempt from paying Dingell-Johnson taxes, which is marine electronics. How is ASA approaching that? How is Johnson Outdoors approaching that? Because from a MinFish's board member's point of view, we hear it all the time. Why is forward-facing sonar the number one thing we talk about? How are marine electronics exempt from this tax?
My understanding is when the tax was made, marine electronics weren't a thing.
Navigational deal. Yeah, well, and it was a navigational tool.
Correct.
Also, yep. So is ASA advocating for that? And we can get our of course, I would not think that you want to pay more taxes as a Johnson Outdoors, or where does this sit within the electronics industry right now? Is this
in writing the check to ASA and the industry and those, it's our position that we support at minimum what we do, and then through a number of partnerships, CCA and other partnerships, we invest a ton of marketing dollars into there. And so we're probably paying more than that. I don't know what that is, but to your question of why isn't that included in that part, it's because it wasn't around then. So sure. I don't know what the legislation happens. I know there is some discussion on, is it a fishing item or is it a navigational item? Is it like an autopilot for your boat? These things are sort of a hybrid. Your sonar is a hybrid boat object, but also fishing tackle. What's in Dingell-Johnson and all that is true fishing tackle. We're going to catch fish with these things. Mm-hmm. And the sonar is really kind of a hybrid, Jer, of it's a boat piece, but it's also used in fishing. And could your outboard be considered the same thing because you use it for trolling? Probably, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know where that sets out, but that's the reason why when that legislation came out. In fact, I asked that recently, but I can tell you from Johnson Outdoors side, I think even Jo has picked up, and I don't want to misquote, how many million pieces of trash. Like our whole DNA is to make the resource better, and to help make every angler have a place where they can belong and catch fish. And so, from a financial standpoint, we do those excise tax pieces. We do a lot more in terms of conservation pieces. I've been part of even planting reef structure and artificial structure for bass fishing and working with conservation associations and state agencies. So we do above and beyond that. Would we pay less if they did it? I don't know. All I know is where our head's at is we know what the law says, and that's what we pay. But we also say, above and beyond, we really want to help this resources. So, I think we've got a really cool piece with the folks at MLF making bass structure in bass fishing. We've done some really cool stuff with the CCA, Coastal Conservation Association group, amazing organization. So those are above and beyond things that we do just because we're on the same page. We want to help the resource in our own way. It's above and beyond.
Yeah, and I know that Johnson Outdoors has helped out with Minfish projects and a number of things. So you guys are absolutely, you wouldn't have been in business with Minn Kota for over 90 years. Obviously, the health of the resource is important to you, so that wasn't meant to be like.
I don't mind.
Yeah.
But
So,
I would say, back to your question, if you don't like that, become part of the process. Do it decent, and then your voice can be heard. The worst thing you can do is sit and be a keyboard warrior and like, I hate this, I love this. No one really benefits from that. And so it's a little dirty. The democratic process is dirty, it's messy, but it's the best thing planet Earth's got going.
It's amazing, and I could not. Kudos for saying that. Show up to these meetings. I mean, people.
Be decent, let your voice be heard.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great. That's how you hash stuff out. And you know what? At the end of the day, when you have those tough conversations, what you find is so often that you have a lot more in common than you realize. When you start talking through it, all of a sudden you realize there's just a few details that we might not agree on, but overall, and we understand each other better, and it's a meaningful conversation. Makes you better, makes the other person better, and that's how you get results.
The objective is let's settle on this 80%. Let's get there. Let's get that implemented. That's how I approach business. We can quill out this. Let's get the 80%, and then let's refine that 20% and figure that out. Don't stop the 80% from happening. Get there, agree on that, implement that, move on to your next business initiative, get that last 15, 20%, and work together to do that.
Yep. Don't let perfect get in the way of good to start making progress.
Here's what I know. I know that we're in an incredibly better place as anglers, both in the fisheries, the ASA people that govern that, all the technologies, and we're making it easier than ever before for somebody to go, I want to get in the sport of fishing. Where do I go? There's a Humminbird Minn Kota waiting for you that really helps you get in the water and make great memories. That's what I do know.
Yeah, man. Well, really appreciate your time, Kolo. This was a fun conversation.
I like the challenges, Jer.
Well, it was good. So, again, I hope we're both employed. I hope
I'll be right.
after this conversation. So, no, sincerely appreciate it. Appreciate the honesty. Appreciate the time. Appreciate your partnership over all these years. And thanks so much. And we will catch you guys next time.
Ooh, that bonus one.